Assalamu alaikum, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Salams, everyone.
Alaikum assalam, everybody. How are we?
Alhamdulillah.
We're good. How are you?
Good.
Really excited for this session. Thank you for spending the time, and thank you for everyone logging in. Just going to give it maybe 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, cool. While we're waiting, I think I'll just introduce a little bit about the session and who we are. So welcome to Cultivating Self-Compassion. This is a mental health panel on building emotional resilience and increasing our love for ourselves. It's run by SDN, which is the Sudanese Diaspora Network. And if you're not familiar with us, we essentially are a youth and professionals-led network, and we essentially aim to unify, mobilize, and empower the youth towards a sustainable Sudan. So throughout Ramadan, we've been hosting sessions online where we've been trying to, specifically with mind, body, soul, rejuvenate our minds, take care of our bodies, and soften our souls. And we're bringing you a variety of sessions and workshops around fitness, nutrition, mental health, self-care, etc. So yeah, everyone's welcome, and thank you for joining if you're new to the channel. So yeah, I think we should be good to make a start. If we can maybe get an introduction. So I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. I'm Azza Abdullah, and I'm part of the Sudanese Diaspora Network, and we're inshallah hosting this session. Beader, do you want to go next?
I'm Beazer. I'm based in Maryland. I'm super excited to be here with you guys. I'm also one of the moderators and a member of SDN. So now we can pass it on over to our awesome panelists if they want to introduce themselves, where they're from, what they do, what they hope to, spread through this meeting today.
Sure, I'll go first. It's so good to meet you, Azza, by the way. We've been communicating for like so long, I feel like, so I'm excited to see your face. And I'm very excited for this panel in general. My name is Nahla. I am a medical graduate and I'm starting my psychiatry residency this year, inshallah. So obviously mental health is my profession, but it's also something that I love to do on the side, even in my free time, which I know sounds like a lot, but it really is what I love to do. So I also create content online, both video and infographic content, to sort of help improve like mental health literacy and reduce stigma around mental health for folks.
Amazing. So Tola, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. Hi, my love. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Azza, for having me. And it's so lovely to be here with you all. My name is Tatuda, and I'm a hypnotherapist and a coach. And I help women heal from anxiety and create the life that they love. And I'm so passionate about this because it's helped me so much in my own journey, and yeah, so this is why I do what I do. And thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. Zara, thank you for being here and welcome. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself to everyone here and we can get started?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, thank you so much, Azza, for having me and for putting together such a wonderful event on such an important topic. I am a spiritual coach and I work with primarily Muslim women to remove the mental blocks that are preventing them from really enjoying life, experiencing the peace, the abundance, the love that Allah has available for each of us, and that we really resist and blocked in many different and creative ways.
Amazing. It's so incredible to have a wide breadth of different speakers who are hopefully going to, give us some insight on this really important topic. I'm going to open it up with some introductory questions, but we want this to be a really interactive session. So if you have any personal anecdotes or your own questions that you want to pop into the question box, feel free to do so. And yeah, so I'll just open it up with, what does self-compassion mean to you? So if anyone wants to go for that first, and then we can, maybe dive a bit deeper into that.
I'll let you guys go first. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, my love. Okay, so I'm going to start with self-compassion and self-love. For me personally, self-compassion, growing up in a place where you have learned to people please, and you have learned to be so sensitive to other people's emotions, and you kind of have to be really, adapt to everyone else's emotions and really take care of everyone else. You forget about yourself. You feel like, stop believing that you're not important. And this becomes a problem later on in life, because this pattern continues and we start people please everybody else, and we forget about ourselves. So it's so important for us to get to know ourselves first. And I think understanding ourselves is self-love, is self-compassion. Just really understanding my behavior, my thought patterns. Why do I do this? Why do I create this in my life? Why do I attract certain people in my life? Why is this happening to me in my life? And this is where it starts. And then you start learning more about yourself. Okay, so why is this happening? So you go back to your childhood and you learn about your own experiences and how your childhood experiences created you the way you are, whether it's not having any boundaries, or allowing people to mistreat you, or you people please, or you forget about yourself, you don't really take care of yourself. So you learn more about the reasons to why you do this on a mental level, right? Because everything is a pattern, subconscious pattern. We have our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. So all our behavior is kind of programmed in the back of our minds. And the more we learn about our subconscious patterns, the more we realize that we are worthy, and then we can build our self-love and self-compassion and confidence. And when we come from this place of self-love and self-compassion, we can actually be there more for other people, not from a place of need, not from a place of being angry that your needs are not being met, but first meeting your own needs, and then seeking those people who are actually able to meet your needs. Because normally when we don't have our needs met as children, we attract, or we kind of choose people who do the same thing to us without realizing, subconsciously. And then we are so frustrated to why we choose those people, right? And there's a reason to this. It's because they trigger these feelings in us, so we can actually go ahead and heal them. And once we heal and have strong boundaries, and we take care of ourselves, and we soothe ourselves, we heal ourselves on a deep subconscious level, then we can kind of take actions every single day to practice this self-love and self-compassion. Things like breath work, things like prayer, really, prayer and meditation together. Things like exercise, eating healthy. All of these things can contribute to your self-compassion and self-love. And this is when you just kind of really know your worth, and you're like, I do so much for myself, I'm not going to allow other people to mistreat me anymore. And then you choose better for yourself, and you have strong boundaries, and you have, you're able to confidently express your emotions, express your needs, and just expect people to respect you the same way you start respecting yourself. So this is kind of overall my opinion. So someone else can maybe add to this. Thank you so much.
I think that was so beautiful, like a beautiful introduction. Thank you for setting the tone really well. What I will add to that is that self-compassion is very closely linked to self-discipline and keeping promises to yourself. So for so many of us, we will bend over backwards to keep our promises to everyone else, right? We told our mom we were going to do this, our friends that, our brother needs, we will break our necks to make sure we fulfill those obligations and those promises to others. But then when it comes to our own selves, our own needs, we're the first to break that promise. I tell myself I'm going to go for a walk today, and oh no, something happened. I don't go for the walk. And I tell myself I'm going to eat a salad, and I don't. And we're constantly breaking these promises to ourselves. So just like she beautifully, eloquently said, right, these practices that you do, it starts first with prioritizing yourself in the list of people that you're obliged to, right? Right now, it's like, okay, God first, then my parents, then and you find yourself all the way at the bottom of the list. Only when I've taken care of everyone else and everything else, that's when now I'm allowed to do something for me. And the self-compassion is understanding that you can put yourself at the top of the list, right? Allah, then you at the top of the list, because it's only when you do all of those things for yourself and you keep those promises for yourself that you really are serving others from a place of love and giving. Right now, for me, from my own personal experience, I was that person giving to others all the time, but it came from a place of duty, of obligation, of feeling like, I was going to be punished, by Allah, or the evil eye would get me if I didn't do these things. And so it was coming from a place of fear, of obligation, and it would generate resentment in me that I am always the one giving and taking care of and doing these things. And so although on the outward, it's like, oh, Zahra's so great, she's helping these people and doing these things, internally, it's not coming from a loving place. It's coming from this fearful, angry, resentful place. And so you want to take those same actions and be able to do them and really be doing them from the place of love, that now I can do these actions because I have kept promises to myself and I prioritize myself, that I am able to give all of these things and all of the ways that I support others from a place of love. So self-compassion supports you to take care of yourself and to take care of others. And the other thing I'll add to that,
sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
The discipline that requires, that self-compassion means self-discipline, that you're looking at what I'm going to take this walk. I say I'm going to take a walk. That when something comes up, that you have the discipline to say, no, I made this a priority. I am going to follow through on it. And, every day take this, whatever it is, 10-minute walk. And that breeds the ability for yourself to feel that you can trust yourself, that you're keeping those promises, and that discipline enables you to then be able to set the boundary that, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you at that time because that's when I take my walk. I can do it for you later in the day or whatever. It empowers you to be able to not feel like you're wishy-washy. It's when we feel like we're wishy-washy that it's easy for other people's stuff to come into our sphere. But when we have our set thing, like, no, this is the way I operate, these are the things I eat, this is the time I go to bed, these are the things that I do, and I'm disciplined about it, then it becomes easy to set the boundaries. It's hard when you're not really settled in the things that you do. Then it feels like everything is case by case. You don't want to make things case by case. You want to set the tone for your life, so then you can set the boundaries around what that is.
Wow, 2 incredible answers so far, guys. I hope you guys have your notebooks, you're taking notes. We're getting all these incredible gems for free. Sorry, we can't afford to pay our incredible panelists. But seriously, guys, these are some incredible gems. And I feel like as a host, I feel like I'm being like I'm in a therapy session right now. I'm being read. They're reading me to filth. But yeah, so far. And Shema, we see, I don't know if I said your name, we see your hand. is it possible for us to hold on to, is it a question, a
Oh
comment?
no, I wanted to actually add to her point, which was we have to feel worthy of self-compassion, because a lot of the times when we're so used to like serving other people, it's because we feel that we are less worthy. So I would say in order to be disciplined, we would have to feel like we were worthy for that commitment. And one of the biggest things that I've come across recently is to understand compassion, to understand any of the feelings like even love, mercy, the best way to learn it is from Allah Himself. And Allah actually prioritizes us because He says, for example, your body has a right over you, right? But unfortunately, the people in our lives might not think that. They think that they may have a bigger priority, they have a bigger haqq or something like that. So I think, like she said, like God first and yourself second, absolutely, because you can't be the best of yourself to anybody if you can't even be it for yourself. And just to end off, there's this amazing quote that I heard, I think her name was Leanka Sani, said, someone said to her, I give from my overflow, I don't give from my cup. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. Like she doesn't give from her own cup because then she'd be at a deficit, but she just gives from what overflows from the cup. So
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Shema, for your
Thank you for sharing.
yeah, thank you for sharing. I'd like to
If everyone can use the raised hands, and then we can, once we're done with like the panel side of things, we can open that up to hear everyone's like comments and questions. It'd be great to hear from you guys. So
for sure. As I was gonna throw a question to Nahla to get her in. I was wondering, why do you think we are so, adding to Shema's point, a lot of us don't think we're worthy, but what else contributes to us not, having that self-compassion? Why are we being conditioned? I know as women, that's another barrier that holds us back, and maybe our culture. But what else has conditioned us to believe we are not worthy of self-compassion? And how do we unlearn that?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I wanted to echo what everybody said already because everything was so beautiful. Like, I want to apologize as well. I have not slept because today was the match. So I am very tired and I'm not going to be as eloquent as I usually am, but I'm going to do my best. But I do want to echo, especially that worthiness aspect, because the perspective that I have about self-compassion, I will answer that question though, but the perspective I have about self-compassion is that in terms of someone who's healing or who's gone through something incredibly traumatic or difficult and goes through their healing journey, they're often their worst critic, and often they're just so much harder on themselves, and even on a regular day-to-day basis, like with questions like, why am I not over this already? Why do I keep thinking about this? Why am I still triggered by these things? These questions that keep coming up in our head. And I think that the worthiness aspect that was mentioned by Shema is so beautiful, because it's self-compassion is responding to those cognitive distortions, so those really inner critic automatic responses that we've developed, and saying to them, I am worthy of the time that it takes to heal. I am worthy of the effort that it takes to be the best self that I am, and to put the love that I put out there for everyone else, to put it right back right here, like right back into the healing that I deserve. So I wanted to add that as well for anyone who's struggling in like a post-traumatic period, or going through something difficult. Self-compassion is even more important in those phases in life. Adding on to everything everyone said, that even in a regular day-to-day life, that discipline, that self-compassion, those boundaries need to be prioritized, but even more so, please be more gentle with yourself. Please be more compassionate with yourself during that particular time of your life. Barriers to self-love. I have a list already, by the way. I did a Clubhouse room on this already, and I did it because I resonate with it, and I know what it felt like to have to like go through those barriers and actually shatter those things that like you said, we have to unlearn because they're so deeply ingrained in us. So self-love barriers include individuals who didn't grow up with supportive parents or emotionally available parents. So neglect is the most minimized form of abuse and most minimized form of like, I guess, problematic households or dysfunctional households, I should say. We usually don't think neglect is a problem. It's usually like the action, the doing of something is bad, but it's that neglect that is actually super, super traumatic as well. So individuals who grew up with parents like that can end up absorbing that type of mentality where their needs come last, and where they have to cater to everybody else's needs to be valuable. Their love is ultimately always conditional. the love that they receive from the world is always going to be conditional. So they have to prove themselves to get it. And that's a barrier to self-love. If you have to prove to yourself that you're worthy of love, that's ultimately a huge barrier to loving yourself. So it's unlearning that aspect first and foremost. Another thing that is a barrier to self-love is not being able to accept healthy love from other individuals, is seeing that healthy love as potentially dangerous territory or unsafe territory, or like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this because I'm not used to this. So it's learning to accept healthy love, because healthy love cultivates our ability to love ourselves too. So it's looking at the world and saying, the stuff I'm used to and the stuff I've accepted before is actually not serving me and it's bad for me. I need to think critically about who I allow in my life and who I love and who I accept love from, so I can ultimately love myself too. And there's a misconception that you can't go into relationships or friendships or anything if you don't love yourself. And I want to I don't want to speak with that narrative in mind, because it's not true. Go into your relationships with self-love if you can, but a lot of folks with trauma in their past and a lot of obviously barriers to self-love in their journey on trying to love themselves are still worthy and deserving of love, and are still huge lovers. They're huge carers and lovers, and they deserve that back too. And they can have someone to hold their hand along the way as they're discovering their, I guess, unlearning some things and learning and discovering how they can love themselves ultimately, or like optimally. But you don't have to be perfectly there before you can be in a relationship that's healthy as well. Another one I should mention as well is social pressures. So being from immigrant communities, low socioeconomic status communities, being the first daughter or being the only daughter, and especially being those two things in an immigrant household. That is a huge barrier, because already you've shouldered basically the reputation of your family. You've shouldered the expectations of your family. It's like, I don't even want to go into it. You already know the expectations, you know the issues that come with that. And that makes you a huge critic of yourself and makes you afraid to love yourself and makes you feel unworthy of love, because you're always tiptoeing around the expectations of others. And if you can't, step into who you are fully, you can't love yourself fully. You're always censoring yourself, and you're always afraid of saying things. You're always afraid of doing particular things or not doing particular things. So these are huge barriers that will get in the way. How can we unlearn them? I think one huge thing is being able to identify for yourself who you are. I know that sounds cliche, and I always thought it was. I always thought, what does that even mean? Like, you are already a human, you're already a person, you are who you are. What do you mean becoming who you are? But then I actually went through that process, and I was like, yeah, that's a full-on thing. Like, that's a whole process. That's a huge part of a person's life, and it means, to me at least, I'm not gonna generalize this, but to me it means unlearning all the crap from my culture, from my family, from my upbringing, from my expectations of me as a Muslim, as a woman, as everything, as all the intersections that make me who I am. It's throwing that all out, all away, and being in the most uncomfortable state in your life, because now you can't rely on these like automatic thoughts and automatic things that we do, because we've always done. I always do this, I always say that, I always behave like this, whatever. It's throwing that out and being incredibly uncomfortable and discovering what it is that you actually want to do. What are my strengths? What do I actually want to do in life? How do I want to speak? How do I want to dress? And what do I want to do with my identity as well? It's like, where am I going to go forward with this? We can talk about practical tools if anyone has specific questions, but basically I think it's throwing out a lot of these preconceived notions of ourselves, and also these like expectations of ourselves, and maybe even like journaling it or going to therapy and talking about it, but saying, what is it that underlying all of that I wasn't able to nurture and cultivate, and how can I do that now?
Amazing. Thank you so much for all your insights and your gems. I was just thinking about the wellness sector in general, and how it's, just quite whitewashed in general, and how it's really interesting to, have a panel where it's Muslim women who are speaking about things of this nature. And so I wanted to ask, how does Islam play a role in cultivating that self-compassion? And like marrying up the two, especially in Ramadan, I guess. It's quite a nice little spiritual retreat as well that's going on. So yeah.
I think a great position that we're in as Muslims to really approach this idea of self-compassion and self-love and all that it entails is to think of what Allah has told us, right? He tells us that every child is born on their fitra, right? Or that we know in Islam, that we're born in a state of purity. We're born in the natural state of worthiness and deservingness, right? You would never look at a baby and be like, oh my gosh, that baby doesn't deserve to, be in a nice stroller or wear good clothes, or, oh my gosh, look at that baby eating, nice, whatever pureed food. You would just, yes, this baby should have everything and get everything, and you know that it is worthy. Whether it's your own child or someone else's child, the baby is pure and worthy and deserving. And this is a reflection of what, again, we know in Islam, right? That is that we are spirits. We are here in this world in a physical form, in this body, for a temporary time, but we are a spirit that was created long ago, that came into our mother's womb, was born into this world, and is living temporarily, and it will ultimately go back. So when we identify with our spirit, and our spirit essentially is unchanged and is limitless and is connected to Allah, then that spirit is completely worthy and deserving, right? Just like when we were babies, that when we were worthy and deserving. And so over time, right, Nahla explained so beautifully all the things that come to diminish that knowledge that we have, that, a baby cries and will keep crying until you give it what it wants. They'll just cry, no, I want that, rattle, give me that rattle. They'll scratch you, they'll claw at you, like they know they deserve that rattle, like give it to me. Even young children, I have 4 children, they'll misbehave in the morning, and 5 minutes later they'll be like, can I have ice cream, can I have this? Like there's no concept of like, you shouldn't get that, or you don't deserve that because of what you did. They're like, what, that was over and now this is what I want, I'm worthy of it, like give it to me. But it's me, right? It's me as a parent, it's a society, like you can't have that anymore, you don't deserve this, you were bad, you're not good. And the notion essentially that we're not good, that we're not good enough, that we're not meeting up to the standards of our parents, of the society, of Allah. So because of that, we do not get to have, or cannot be, or should shrink down because we are not good. So when we go back to Islam and what Allah says, we are spirits and we are born on our natural state and we're worthy and deserving. It is a coming back, right? And Islam, Muslims, people, we're all insan, the word for that is forgetful. We have all forgotten our true nature. We've forgotten who we are. And we are reminding ourselves of our spiritual nature, of our divinity within us, that Allah is closer to us than our jugular vein, and that any mistake, flaw, shortcoming, bad habit, whatever it is that we do that we think makes us so bad and so not as good as the next person is irrelevant. It is exactly how we are. I'm not saying not to work on those things, but it is a mark of our humanity. Most of us are beating ourselves up for being human. We're like, whoa, how come I can't consistently wake up for Fajr? Because you're human. How come I can't? Because you're human. You're human and you're supposed to make mistakes and be flawed. And literally Allah says, if you did not sin and make mistakes, I would replace you with people who would, so that they could make mistakes and turn back to me. It is a recognition of our humanity, acceptance of ourselves for being flawed human beings, and in that state to still claim our worthiness. Just like children, think and look of all the children around you in your life. They'll go around doing all sorts of shenanigans and then literally come back asking for whatever they want. They have no notion of the idea that they're not worthy of it. And they'll, from whether they're poor or rich or whatever, they will ask for extravagant things because they don't know the concept of money, or that's too expensive or whatever. Like, well, why can't I have that? So we have to go back to that childlike way that we just knew that we were worthy. And that is what Islam, Allah says, like we were born on our fitrah, right? We were born in that way and we lose it. So we're going back to it. And when you think about, you mentioned it being whitewashed, the wellness space, the additional pressure, Nahla touched on it as being immigrants, but it's really just now in the whole world is geared towards the standards of living according to whiteness and Western criteria. And so that added pressure of thinking that you need to do it in this Western white people way, and to, again, let go of that and be wholly comfortable and enjoying exactly who you are, how you grew up, your background, your accent, your culture, and all of it. And that is great and good. And you don't need to alter it or diminish it or change it to fit into what you think the mold of a good person or a good Muslim or whatever it is looks like. So Allah is really said, remember me. When you remember Allah, you remember you're a spirit. And that spiritual remembrance reminds you that you're worthy. And when you remember that Allah loves you already, exactly as you are, that remembering that Allah loves you can support you to love yourself. If it's too hard for you to love your own self because whatever, your past, your trauma, those things, you're just like, I can't forgive myself for these things, then go from a different angle. Go from the angle that Allah still loves you. Allah has never stopped loving you, and Allah created you knowing everything that you would do or not do and loves you. And so allow that love to then foster your own sense of self-love.
Can I answer the question about the, I don't know how you posed it, I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the part about the wellness space? And I'll repeat it.
Yeah, so I was just asking around just the wellness space being dominated by, Western values, and how it'd be really interesting to hear how Islam can play a role in, in building our self-compassion, and how actually we have a talk coming up on how self-love is a form of worship as well.
Yes, that's so beautiful. I wanted to thank you, Zahra, for all of that. That I didn't even know, I didn't have that lens or that perspective in seeing that. So thank you for putting that so beautifully for us to learn. I wanted to say that coming from being within the medical psychiatric space, and also being obviously in a very, very privileged position. I'm not sure if it's as obvious, but I'm in the Greater Toronto area, where there's a huge Muslim community, a very multi-cultural community, very diverse. And I, in fact, when I was looking for a therapist, did not particularly look for a therapist that is Muslim, or a therapist that is from a visible minority, or a person of color. I just wanted a therapist. And I was very, very lucky in that I was scrolling through, and it was the fact that I saw so many women of color, saw so many women who wear the hijab, saw so many Muslim women, that I was like, what? This is amazing. Like, I have all these options, but I didn't even go through it with that lens. And I'm just fortunate to be living here. And I speak to so many people online that are like, how do I find a therapist that can just at the bare minimum be Muslim, just to understand, like, not have to ask me all these questions. I can just have a little bit of a baseline knowledge, so I don't have to explain all these things. I don't have to explain why in my religion I can't wear these things in my house, and that contributes to my trauma because of the way that I dress. My dad says this, and my just as an example. And I'm sure there are so many you can think of, these little nuanced, like, intricate details of our lives that we have to explain. And I think the problem with mental health spaces is that we are underrepresented, obviously, first of all. But secondly, there's like this, and somebody, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm being, too, from painting things with a broad brush, but the way that it's navigated even on social media is that if there's a spiritual lens being applied by a Muslim therapist, a Muslim counselor, a Muslim healer, a Muslim doctor, it's like everybody rolls their eyes. But when a spiritual lens is applied by a non-Muslim or, white, non-visible minority person, it's like the whole world celebrates. And it's accepted when it's from one type of person, but not from one another. And that's what I've noticed in spaces online, because I create content on there, and I'm like, this is so frustrating that so much of this knowledge is rooted in Islam. So much of what they disseminate, so much of what they throw out there is actually rooted in Islam. And then I was like, you know what, whatever, I'm going to create content about this. I'm over it. I'm going to reclaim that narrative. This is there's so much beauty in the Islamic tradition that comes with with regards to healing and psychology, and especially that comes with healing trauma. And even going through pandemics like the one that we're in right now, there's so much literature out there that I'm trying my best to like condense and share online, but it's so difficult, but I'm trying my best to share that. But even looking at the very small, minuscule parts of our religion, like a surah, like Surah Al-Duha, that I was reading of like trauma papers by these two beautiful psychologists that dissected that surah and applied this whole entire healing holistic lens of going through every single ayah and talking about how that shows cognitive behavioral therapy, and how that, that's been a tradition of ours, is reframing our thoughts, and gratitude, and how cultivating gratitude, and it has been rooted, has been present in our tradition in Islam for so long, and how it's encouraged in Surah Duha. And other aspects like, behavioral change. So it's not just your cognitions, it's also your behaviors. There's so much more I could say about that, but I'm working on putting out more content like that so that Muslims who read it can say, well, now I feel validated, and I feel like I don't have to separate my faith from my healing. I don't have to separate my faith from my psychology. It's all can be intertwined and supported and encouraged in the same spaces. And even if you can't find a therapist that can cultivate that environment for you, hopefully you can find someone that is has an intersectional lens that they can apply to this whole experience, and also that can, help foster that growth for you on the side. That's my mom. Okay, sorry guys.
No problem. Salam, Mom. Thank you, Nahla, for bringing us that perspective when it comes to a cultural lenses and seeking out folks that look like us, and like even with your process creating content online. I wanted to also throw this, bring Satada back into the conversation. We had an awesome question in the chat that has to do with, I'll just read a portion of it and then I'll add a little bit to it. Do you think as a parent, you should be able to talk to your child about emotional issues? So how would that conversation go? How do we, educate our children? But also I'd like to add on to that is how do we, just educate and have those conversations with our friends, our family, our peers, because nowadays you ask someone how they're doing and they'll say, I'm good. And that's it. You move on. Or you say, I'm fine. And then you move on. So how do we have those genuine conversations with our loved ones, and how do we truly check in with them?
Thank you so much, my love. And first of all, I really would like to just add a little bit on the spirituality and psychology bit before I can answer this question. For me personally, psychology and spirituality are very much connected. And it may be that one happens before the other. And many of my clients, I have many clients who are Muslim and who are non-Muslims as well. So, people come to me not necessarily for spiritual healing, but for mental healing, right? They have issues and they want to fix it. They want to know where it comes from and they want to heal that. So we do the mental work first. So we focus on how to heal traumas from childhood. Why is it that they feel afraid or hurt or frustrated, angry? Where is this coming from? So we first of all go back and heal that on a mental level, right? And as well as this, they need a lot of physical healing, just like anyone else. All of us, we need physical healing. So we need to detoxify the body. And one of the things we do this by is fasting, right? So fasting is so many benefits to this. And then, this connects as well to our spiritual life as well. And we can really heal, and we can detoxify on a spiritual level as well. And this is, part of this is the art of letting go. We need to let go of so much tension in the body, so many blockages. We need to let go of so much toxicity in the body, which, it comes in a form of fear, shame, guilt, resentment, anger, blame and doubt. There is so much that we have in our bodies that needs to be released. It needs to be, released on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. And there are different levels to healing. And then, I feel like kind of eventually it does lead to spiritual healing. And, we kind of surrender completely, which is part of our religion, right? We surrender completely to the divine, to something bigger than ourselves. And then we can we can start to learn how to trust the divine. We trust and we connect ourselves more. You know, how do we do that? We connect by creating a practice, prayer, meditation, you know, really feeling the presence of the divine. And we do remembrance, right? We remember God and the angels and prophets, and we remember them. And when we remember them, we are literally in their presence. Right? I mean, they are here with us. And this is a really high vibrational state. We create this high vibration around us. And this, you know, this can bring us so much closer to God, so much closer to the divine. And this is actually the whole purpose of everything, right? All the mental problems that we have, all the problems, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your job, whether it's in your health, whatever problems you have, you know, it all kind of leads to your, you know, being closer to the divine. But there are steps that we need to take. We need to, like Nahla said, that we need to be gentle on ourselves, right? We need to gently, gradually kind of get to that stage. And it's okay. It doesn't matter how long it takes us to get there. That's completely fine, right? So we need to heal on a mental, a physical, emotional, and then spiritual level. And of course, you know, there's so much science behind everything we do in our religion, right? Prayer, fasting, everything we do, there's so much science behind it. And when we start learning this, we're like, oh my God, that's why it says do this. And I didn't realize this before, because I was doing it so unconsciously. But now that I'm doing it more consciously, I'm like, I can feel the benefit of this. I can, you know, completely embrace this practice and really, really kind of do it more often. And because I know the benefits of this, right? So yes, very much, I think spirituality and psychology are very much connected, but it's just that not everyone is ready for this yet, and that's okay. Whether people are Muslim or non-Muslim, you know, it's okay not to be aware of this yet. And acceptance to this, I think, is a really big part of this, you know, just being accepting of people where they are. And it's okay, because I have many clients who are Muslim, but they just don't practice anything because they have so much going on in their lives. You know, there's so much chaos that they can't even kind of, you know, there isn't space in their minds for spiritual practice or anything like that. And that's completely fine. And it's okay. In time, with guidance, they will get there. I completely believe that 100%. So yes, and the next question I wanted to go into about children and how we can speak to them, children or anyone else in our lives. I think emotional intelligence is so important, first of all, for ourselves to learn. Once we learn it for ourselves, it's going to be so easy for us to teach other people how to do the same thing. For example, with kids, we can help them really become emotionally intelligent by recognizing their emotions. For example, a lot of kids, they just feel frustrated and annoyed and they start screaming and shouting, but they have no idea why. And it's just kind of like sitting them down, giving them that presence, our presence, you know, because a lot of the times in childhood, you know, somebody here said that it's the emotional unavailability of the parents that creates the trauma, right? So this is the biggest kind of silent trauma that is created as children, is when the parents are not emotionally available, which means that they aren't emotionally able to be present with the child. They're too busy doing something, or they're just, you know, there, but they're thinking about something else. And the child feels neglected. The child feels like they aren't good enough. They feel like the parent must not love them. So for children, if they're older than the kind of this, you know, they've been through maybe trauma or anything, or even if they haven't, we can really help them recognize what they're feeling. Oh, okay, this happened and they're really frustrated. I actually did this with my nephew the other day. He was just really upset about something. And I said, hey, okay, so how does that make you feel? Like, how do you feel? And he said, I feel really angry. And I said, oh, that's okay. It's okay to feel angry. Like, I'll be here with you. You know, just feel angry. It's okay. I said, what else do you feel? And he said, I feel really sad. And then he started crying. And I just thought, well, it's okay to feel sad sometimes, you know? And then he calmed down. And it's just because when we recognize the emotions that we're feeling inside of ourselves, then we can really accept this about ourselves. And then these emotions dissolve inside of us. So just teaching kids this will just make such a big difference. And, you know, we can do this for ourselves as well, just self-soothing. You know, if we feel something, you know, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling really angry and frustrated. Why? Okay, this person did something. Okay, so what can I do about this? What else am I feeling? And it's okay. You know, whatever I'm feeling, I still love, accept, honor, and forgive myself. You know, just kind of changing the way you talk to yourself inside of your mind, inside of yourself. And then this will change the way you speak to other people as well. And also boundaries is really important with our friends and families, because when you're on your healing journey, you completely change as a person. You become this completely new person. And your family and friends will be like, well, what happened to you? There's something different about you. Like, they don't understand it so well. So you really need to create boundaries with them. And it's the most difficult thing to start expressing emotions and your needs with your family and friends when you've never done it before, right? So you really need to try, like, again and again, even if they might be dismissive in the beginning. They might be like, oh my, what's wrong with you? What are you talking about? Like, why are you saying all these things all of a sudden, right? So they might be a little bit dismissive, and that's okay. Sometimes if they continue to be dismissive, then you kind of need to let them go, and you really need to distance yourself from them, whether they are friend or family, because that's toxic, right? When you express your emotions and you express your needs to someone, at some point they need to understand and be like, oh, I'm really sorry, and I'll try my best, I'll do better, right? So with you kind of just saying, for example, someone does something that really, really hurts your feelings, and before you might have just, you know, keep it to yourself and be really, really frustrated and maybe cry to yourself, but never say anything. Maybe you can just say something like, hey, when you did this, it really hurt my feelings. I was really upset. I was really afraid. I was really angry. And I need you to acknowledge this. I need you to not do this again, right? And they might be like, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't realize. Or they might be like, well, you're so sensitive, you know, you're too sensitive. It wasn't a big deal. I didn't mean it like that. But then you have to insist and say, but it really hurt my feelings. What are we going to do about this, right? So we really need to be consistent with our boundary setting, vulnerability. Being vulnerable is one of the most difficult things, but it's also one of the most fulfilling things you can do for yourself, because that's how you create healthy relationships. Without vulnerability, expressing emotions and needs, our relationships would just really be shallow and they would just not be fulfilling. So that's a really, really important skill to build. Yes, that's the answer to this. I hope this answers the question.
It does. I hope so. If the person who asked that question maybe can follow up, but I thought that was really comprehensive. Thank you for asking that. I actually had a question as well. You mentioned telling yourself, you know, I love, honor, and accept myself. And that's actually something that I looked into doing when I experienced like physical symptoms of anxiety. It just really helped me to sort of like tap on various different points and just like affirm to myself, like, you know, even though I feel yada, 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 I choose to love, honor, and accept myself. And so the question I have with that is, how do you start the process of healing to attain emotional resilience, and what personal practices do you guys I guess employ in terms of like maintaining that self-compassion? And yeah, it'd be great to hear from you guys.
I can start, but I just wanted to also acknowledge anyone who's here that is feeling any sort of emotions right now, because I know that there's a verdict that's going to be coming out in 10 minutes. So I want to make space for that. You can be self-compassionate to yourself right now as well. And, you know, do some breath work, do whatever soothes your anxiety in these moments. It's a very huge moment in history right now. But I wanted to answer that question in terms of basically getting to a point where you're healed doesn't exist. So I want to start off the conversation by saying that there's no such thing as a healed person. You know that you're healing when, you know, certain things are happening in your mind and your body and your relationships and in your life, but there's no point of healing. So I think that the journey and where it can start is different for everybody, but there's some tools that I used when I was starting out on my journey, my self-love journey, and my ability to like what I was describing earlier, and having this identity formation journey, and not living someone else's narrative anymore, you know, living my own narrative. So the first thing I did is I started to journal a lot. I was writing constantly. I was writing my thoughts. I was writing my fears. I was writing absolute nonsense all the time. If I felt something, I wrote it down because it needed to be released somehow. And it was very therapeutic for me. But if you're not a writer and if you don't journal, that's totally fine. But it's the awareness. It's the writing of things allows you to become present and aware in that moment. If you can accomplish that presence and that awareness in other ways, go for it. If you can accomplish it by talking to a friend, by sitting in that emotion, just literally sitting in that feeling and asking yourself the question, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling what I'm feeling? How can I help soothe myself right now? And basically letting yourself feel that feeling, because otherwise we won't get through it. So it's starting off with, I would say, journaling or accepting, you know, a lot of these emotions, being aware of them and sitting with them, not minimizing or dismissing or throwing them away, because the only way out is through. You have to experience all those really uncomfortable feelings in the process. And I would also say other things is a lot of self-discovery. So part of the healing journey is identity formation, like I said. So it's basically like thinking, what do I actually want to spend my time on? What do I love? What sparks joy in my life? And actually like cutting out time for that. So saying, I'm going to take this time out of my day to do these things. And exactly like Zahra said, you're going to need discipline in that too. It's to say that no matter what comes up, I love myself. I am worthy of loving myself, and I'm worthy of the time that it takes to cultivate the self-compassion and the self-love. So I'm going to go for that walk. I'm going to go for that hike. I'm going to spend an hour reading. I'm going to go for that drive, whatever it takes for you to do the things that you love and create space for yourself. Do it and have some discipline with it as well. Ultimately, I know this is a no-brainer. We always say this to people, but if you can access therapy in the centric and is very Western, if you can access the type of therapy that is intersectional, if you can find therapists that will actually apply a holistic lens to their treatment or their therapeutic process, finding that type of therapy is extremely beneficial. And then other things is acknowledging what triggers you. I don't want to always use triggers because I think we like use triggers for everything, but the emotion of like this overwhelming anger, fear, or anxiety, what causes those feelings in you? And why you're doing that is because what triggers you shows you what you need to heal. It's basically opening up the book for you. It's saying it's okay. It's okay that you're triggered, or it's okay that you're feeling these really intense emotions. This is just an opportunity for healing. What is the root cause of these emotions and these feelings? And how can you tackle them? You can tackle them by sitting in that emotion, accepting that emotion, feeling through that emotion. And you can tackle them through journaling, through doing the things that you love, through therapy. And ultimately after therapy, honestly, after a few sessions, you'll start to give therapy to yourself. You'll start to provide that positive feedback, that reassurance, and you'll be that inner, that voice inside your head will start to shift from the critic, from the one that is, you know, so like critical and mean towards you. Sometimes a lot of us have really, really, really mean critics in our heads. It will start to shift into this really compassionate, beautiful, gentle voice. It doesn't happen overnight, but I'm just saying that ultimately you want to get to that space as well. And I lost track of my thoughts. I'm very sorry, but that's what I have so far.
Thank you, Nahla. That was so great. I'll add that as you are starting in the journey, if you're just starting, or if you've done a lot of work and you're feeling blocked, take it small, take it to be free flowing. For me, how I kind of got started in my journey is that I was feeling blocked in my life, that I was trying to achieve these things and I wasn't able to achieve them. And somehow I kept hearing this, like, run a marathon. And I was like, you know what? I haven't challenged myself with something really hard in a long time. I keep hearing about running a marathon. I'm going to run a marathon. And I hadn't run in like 10 years. I used to run in high school. I hadn't run in like 10 years. It was a very big, scary kind of goal. But what happened was that I started to run every day to train for this marathon. And I decided that I wasn't going to listen to music or Quran or play podcasts. I was just going to let myself run, enjoy the scenery. I lived in Manhattan at the time. And so I ran every day for at least 30 minutes up to like 2 hours. But it was during these runs that my healing journey started, because I wasn't listening to anything and my mind was just wandering, and it was making connections and things were coming up and I would have epiphanies. And and then I started reading things, and things just started to unfold, and I began to see how much healing I needed to do, and I began to actually do the work of healing it. But it really just started with 30 minutes to myself, letting my mind wander. So I know some people who like to just go on random drives and drive and let their mind wander, or just go on a walk, or just sit in your room and ask yourself why. Ask yourself why about something. Why did that make me mad? But why didn't it make me mad last time? But why did it bother me so much? But why does it keep happening? But why didn't I say anything? Just why, until you will get somewhere. The thing about the healing journey is that, by the mercy of Allah, like, you're guaranteed success. I love how Nahla said there's no healed person. You won't get to complete healed, but you're guaranteed to make progress, because literally it's like a flimsy door. It's just that we are so scared to knock on the door, to push it, like, this is the way I am. I don't want to, upset my parents. I don't want to damage my friendships, whatever. Like, I just have to suck it up, that we are just so tightly bound in how we've been operating. But the minute that you begin to question it or push at it, it will just, it falls over to show you that that's why. Like, and what you'll find will be usually very simple, right? It'll be simple. You are people pleasing. You are afraid of being abandoned. It'll be very simple and obvious and clear. But then you will realize it is so hard for you to change. You're like, oh my God, like, it's so hard for me to stop people pleasing, or it's so hard. And now the work begins, because the knowledge of what's going on and the understanding of what it is are the simple things. But to actually do it really comes from you challenging so many beliefs about you. And this is what I do as a mindset coach, is that what are these underlying beliefs that people won't like me when I do this, and that I will, be outcast from my family. And I believe that it's bad. We have a question in the chat. I believe that it's bad to challenge my parents. My parents, want me to become an engineer or a doctor, and I have to do that no matter what. And we just, the layers and layers of beliefs that you have to go through. And so that's the healing work, is to dig through the layers of why it's so challenging. Because on the surface, it's simple, right? Don't people please. When someone says something you don't want to do, just say no. You're like, yeah, that sounds easy, but I don't know why I cannot get myself to say no. When they ask me, Zahra, can you come over? No, yes. Like, why is it so hard? And so you want to give yourself grace now. Grace, compassion, mercy. Like, I acted the way I did because that is what I believed before. And now, in order for me to behave and act differently, I have to believe something different, right? It's because you believe that it is good to adhere to everything that your parents have said, which is why you do it. So if you can believe that it's good not to do exactly everything they say, or to offer your own perspective in this respectful way, then you'll be able to do it. A lot of times we want to shift our behavior without looking at the underlying belief. And it is too much of a gap. You have to first change the belief, then you can shift your behavior. And that part of the healing journey, find whatever way and whatever method supports you. Nahla gave a great list, and then don't look around, right? If this way works for you, do it. Just do it. And you'll reach a point where maybe it won't work for you anymore and you'll need to look for something else. But while something is working for you, don't question it. Use that method if it is supporting you. And also don't get caught up in what the source is. If it's a non-Muslim source that is supporting you, do it, because there's no monopoly on this truth. All of the spiritual teachers are drawing from the same well. All of the prophets taught the same thing, right? And these new age people calling it, oh, it's the universe and blah, blah, blah. That's fine. If it resonates with you, substitute in Allah for universe and use it. Like, don't overwhelm yourself with, oh my God, what, is this not? If it is making you feel better, trust it, because the number one thing is it is not, although it is commonplace now for us to be full of anxiety, stress, and feeling depressed and all of these things, it is not normal. We were made, Allah created us for joy, for happiness, for prosperity, for abundance, for wealth, for beauty, for love. And that is the norm. And so if you are finding some resources that lead you to feel those uplifting, higher vibration feelings, trust that your spirit is responding to something with goodness in it, and allow yourself to enjoy it, and don't close yourself off from it, because again, that's another trap to keep you feeling down. Anything that's keeping you feeling down is not the way to go. So the healing journey, start simple, start with a walk, a drive, sitting and asking yourself why, allow yourself to go where it leads, and then have grace, because it is simple, but it is very hard to do. And that difficulty comes from all the layers of beliefs that you have stacked up on top of each other, and you want to, like an onion, go through them and undo as many as you can.
Can I add one quick thing about self-soothing?
Yes.
So I was reading about this recently, and I wasn't even self-aware about this, but basically the idea of self-soothing is very important. We're all meant to do it. I totally, I'm a proponent of it for sure. But there's also this really detrimental form of self-soothing where we will go into, I think it was Yuzaha that just mentioned, like when you're going on those runs, there's nothing coming in. So it's all these thoughts are coming out, and you're having to sort of compartmentalize and go through them and hear them and feel them. And it's like, that's healing. That's what you need to heal. And a lot of our self-soothing, which I'm not going to say is positive, it's a little bit, it can be self-sabotaging, is like, as soon as I feel that emotion, I open my laptop and I go on, like I'll watch a Netflix episode, or I pick up the phone, I talk to somebody, because I cannot sit with those thoughts. Those emotions are so unbearable. Or I go out and I go with my friends, or I like, there's lots of these things. I don't have all the examples, but so many things that we can do to silence what needs to be done for us to heal, and it's not positive self-soothing. So there's like just want to distinguish between those two.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Thank you for mentioning that watching Netflix isn't necessarily a self-care. But there's a few comments in the question box around how do you deal with toxic relationships in the household and the family? How do you set boundaries with people that might not respect those boundaries? Particularly parents. There's quite a few questions on dealing with that. So if anyone has any advice for that would be amazing.
I can quickly go first and introduce. Oh, hi. I'm just saying hello to the beautiful little baby there. So I'll introduce that topic real quick. So with regards to families, I wanted to put a disclaimer that if you're in a situation where your physical well-being is in danger, these do not apply. Please do not take what you hear about boundaries and put them in place when you are physically in danger in your home. So I just want to make sure that that's a disclaimer there. If that's not the issue, and there's obviously toxicity comes in so many forms, if that's excluded, there are a lot of things that you're going to have to sit with and understand prior to setting boundaries, or in the process of setting boundaries, that are very uncomfortable truths. Unfortunately, in the process of setting boundaries with your family, you may potentially, but most likely, experience isolation. You will potentially or most likely experience this pushback. You will feel awful sometimes. You will feel so crappy. You'll feel like you're letting everybody down. You'll feel like there's just so many emotions I could describe. But for my example, I grew up pretty much with this notion in my head that I just want to make my parents proud. It's what, if anyone ever said, what do you want to do? What are your goals? I'm like, I just want to make my parents proud. That's all I wanted to do. And I thought that was so noble. I thought in my head, in my cute little mind, I thought that was the best thing in the world, but it's actually not. It's really, truly not. And it's a reflection of a lot of toxicity that I grew up with in my life, where I wasn't living for myself. I wasn't doing anything for myself. I was just wanting to make sure that 2 people on this earth were happy with my behavior. And that's so incredibly burdensome. You should never live that way. It's such a burden and it's toxic. So for me to set boundaries, I had to understand that I wasn't going to make them proud. I had to accept that, and that sucked. I had to be like, well, they're not going to be proud of this, but I got to do what I got to do, because otherwise they'll resent me, I'll resent them, and I won't be able to love them the way that I should, and I won't be able to accept the love from them that I want to accept. So it's sitting with those really uncomfortable feelings of isolation, pushback, feeling really crappy, because you probably have been people pleasing, and you probably started to do that way when you were younger, and you were doing it for your parents. So when you stop doing that and you flip 180 and you're like, boundaries, it's a crappy feeling sometimes. But over time, I think it's the fact that if you can maintain that, if you can be resilient in spite of all of those emotions, it's saying to yourself, even if I'm feeling all these really crappy feelings, I'm going to stick with this because I deserve to put these boundaries down. I want to maintain my relationship with my family, with my parents, or with whoever this is with, whatever relationship you're in. I want to maintain this. And it's also even vocalizing that to them if you can. So if, maybe some of us have a language barrier, so it's hard to kind of like explain, but if you could try to explain that what I'm doing here is because I don't want to resent you. I love you. I'm doing this because I love you. It's reiterating that to your family members or your friends or your loved ones. It's also making sure that they know they shouldn't feel guilty for this experience. And it's out of love. It's out of sheer love. It's not out of hatred or resentment. It's literally the opposite. You're trying to prevent those feelings from happening. And other things that you can do is, in the process of setting your boundaries, you can also like frequently not just checking in with yourself, but checking in with them and saying like, our boundaries are not always going to be the exact same. They're not meant to be strict. Boundaries can be flexible. They can change over time as well. So it's checking in with one another, with your family, with whoever it's with, and saying, hey, like, I know I said this last week, like, how are you feeling? Can you relate to that? Would you do the same thing? And also like maybe shifting and transforming that boundary as well. So boundaries are not stringent. They're not set in stone. It's being flexible in the process too. But that's barely touches the surface. Like there's so much more I could say, but I'll just stop there.
No, that's really useful. Thank you so much, Nahla. There's quite a few questions in the box, so I'm gonna just kind of like quick fire a few so like we can get through them. What tools do you give a person when he or she is in a state of panic attack and losing control, or general anxiety? That could be useful for some other listeners as well.
Sorry, what was the question?
It was, what tools would you give a person when he or she is in a state of panic and losing control?
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. I missed that. Okay. Yeah, there are so many tools for anxiety disorders, panic disorders when you're in that moment of panic. I urge you, there are a few apps that I can't remember their names. I'm so sorry, but there are a few like apps that you can download that you literally, when you're experiencing that, they walk you through breathing exercises, and they walk you through like these, not just self-soothing, but these like, what are they called? They're like these, there are these questions to yourself to challenge your thoughts, to challenge your anxious thoughts. But yeah, the most basic type of self-soothing during a panic attack or when you're feeling out of control is the five step one. So it's naming, somebody do this if they know it. I'm not in my head today, but it's like 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, going through that process. So it's using your tactile, all of your senses to divert that energy and be able to basically not just distract yourself, but also be present in that moment within yourself. So you're not overcome by those emotions. You're being able to plant yourself in that space where you are right now. Other things that you can do is when we're also having panic attacks or anxiety attacks, we might be really trying to escape that moment. So if we're being triggered or feeling like that it's about to come, we might run, escape, like get out of this space, or get out of the car, get out of the bus, stop the car. Like we might be willing to do all that. I'm not saying don't stop your car. Be safe. Stop your car if you have to, and you know, park on the side or something like that. But if you can develop this alongside obviously a therapist or mental health professional, is endure that moment, is experience that moment, is sit through that anxiety, because that is the only way that we can get through anxiety and be able to look back and say, okay, that wasn't that bad. I survived. I can survive again. I can survive another one. And that's okay. I got through that one. And that's a win for you. That's celebrating that win for you. We're really quick to escape from those moments. And it's okay if you are. I don't want to make you feel guilty or bad. It's okay if you are in that space. Do what you need to do to get through this time. But if you can start to challenge yourself and sit in those moments, trust me, it is so worth it and it works. And then obviously there's other things like tactile stimulation. So working with like little fidget toys when you're in a anxiety inducing moment or you're feeling it. There's like zippers you can close and open. There's like those Ziploc bags that you can open and shut. And like, you know, there's a lot of like toys that you can work with and shape into different like shapes and have different tactile stimulation on them that can divert your attention away from that and into the object and sort of also keep yourself grounded. So those are some places to start.
I was just going to check before I ask the next question. Zara and Toda, are you guys good for time? Just because I know we might need to wrap up in a few. You're good for time? Okay, perfect. So I received a private question. Someone said, this is amazing and I'm learning so much. I might have missed this part. I want to know what to do if you have trauma and struggle with low self-worth. How can we develop higher self-worth?
I'm going to try to answer this question, my love. So I'm going to try and answer all the questions that I missed out, but kind of put them together. So for the first question that you had, how do we start our journey of healing? I'd like to share a personal story of mine. I started my journey in 2012. And I remember I was in South Africa, I was by myself and I was so anxious. Everything was kind of not going well for me. So this is when I started listening to Louise Hay. I don't know if you guys know her, Louise Hay. And I started listening to her meditations online, self-love meditations. And this was what helped me actually sleep at night. So I can completely understand, you know, what people are going through when they come and talk to me about, you know, what they're going through, anxiety and relationship issues and all of that. So this is where I started. And this is what led me to gradually, you know, from one thing to another. Right. And then after this, I did so many things, you know, I did so many different courses to heal myself and therapy and breath work and retreats and so much, like so much. And I think your journey guides you. Just listen to your guidance. And I know your guidance isn't something that you can tap into easily. It's a practice. We can practice to listen to ourselves, but your guidance system will always guide you to the next best thing that you need to do, to the next thing that you need to sign up for, you know, the next course you need to do, the next therapist you need to see, the next retreat. It's all kind of like step by step guiding you to do, right? And some of the things that I've used that have helped me so much is hypnotherapy, breath work, emotional freedom technique. And this is what, as you were asking me about the I love, accept, honor, and forgive myself, you know, tapping on these points of your body, where when you tap on these points, your body actually relaxes and you go into a hypnotic state almost. So you're so relaxed. So you are open for suggestions. So when you say things like, oh, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling really sad and afraid, but I still love, accept, honor, and forgive myself, you start releasing this emotional tension in the body, right? So these are really, really useful tools for us to use to heal ourselves. And we can do this consistently. And another thing is really tap into our creativity. You know, finding something that you love that is creative, like singing, dancing, painting, pottery. You know, what is it that you like? Journaling, writing. You know, it really depends on the person, really. And you can choose anything, whatever kind of makes you feel alive inside, right? I love painting, so I paint in my spare time. And it just makes me feel so present. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just kind of lost in my painting. And so many people, you know, the people that actually, you know, spend some time tapping into their creativity, that's how it feels. You know, you really feel alive by just creating something, and you're so proud of that thing you've created. And maybe not, it isn't really good. I'm not saying my painting is really good, but you create something out of nothing, right? It's so beautiful. And yeah, so this is you know, ways to kind of start your healing journey, and then you'll really be guided to go deeper and deeper and really change your subconscious patterns on a subconscious level, right? And you know, like we said, EFT does this, helps you tap into the subconscious beliefs that you have, subconscious patterns that you carry within your body, because the subconscious mind is really the whole body, the whole nervous system. We carry information genetically in the cells, in every cell, right? So we need to release that, and it takes time, and that's okay. So, and hypnotherapy as well works on a subconscious level. So we really release a lot of our negative beliefs and negative patterns with hypnotherapy. And then once we do, you know, that healing, then we can we can be more present, and we can focus more on the present moment and ground ourselves and feel so much better. And of course, you know, this journey is, it's not like you're going to be healed at some point. You still need to carry on purifying your heart, purifying your spiritual body, right? You need to still you know, do your prayer and connect to the divine, and you still need to kind of have your practices that keep you connected to source, keep you connected to the divine, right? And this is beautiful. It's almost ecstatic, and it's almost you know, different emotions that we've never ever have felt before, like euphoria and ecstasy. You can actually experience those by connecting to the divine, and it's the most beautiful emotion that you can experience. So and it's definitely possible. So you know, wherever you are in your journey, don't give up, and you can always you know, look for help, look for support. There's so many, you know, even in our Muslim communities, there are so many people speaking up now about mental health, and I'm so grateful for this. I love this when I see, you know, our Muslim brothers and sisters, and more sisters than brothers, but I'm hoping to get more brothers too. And it's so beautiful to see, you know, the vulnerability and all of that. It's so nice. So you can always, you know, connect to people and create a community where, you know, people are supporting each other and helping each other heal, and that's the most beautiful thing, right? So definitely doing this. And there's so much free content available. You know, so many of us kind of have free stuff online, and even on my website I have tons of free content you can use for your healing. And you know, these tools can help you gradually, you know, look into your own self, and, you know, ask yourself questions about what you should do next. So you can do this. The next question was about
I just want to quickly jump in, because I think Nahla has to leave, and I just want to thank you for being here. So thank you for being here, Nahla.
I'm so sorry. Well, I do have to go. I already got interrupted once, and I'm sorry, but I just wanted to thank you. Thank the speakers. Both of you were so beautiful, so eloquent, and I learned so much from you. And I wanted to thank everyone in the comments, like, that were just commenting on everything that we said. And Shaymat for mentioning the triggers in the podcast episode. Like, bless your heart for listening. I just went through them right now. So thank you guys. I want to just conclude with one thing, if that's okay, before I go. I wanted to say that I learned this from a psychiatrist recently who told me that perhaps the barrier for you to love yourself is because you always thought that love came from others. Love was only from other people. And maybe that's something that we can think about and reflect upon, that love isn't something that we that only comes from other people. It can come from within ourselves. And that in order to love yourself as well, you sort of have to work on trying to create a person that you can love, is loving the person that you are, but creating that person too. So I hope that those are some things I can leave you guys to reflect on and think about. And yeah, I'm also literally like writing about this and posting about this on Instagram tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about resilience and post-traumatic growth tomorrow. So if you do want to look at my stuff on Instagram, you can go ahead. But thank you so much for this space. I appreciate you all.
Amazing, thank you. Virtual round of applause. Cool. So Toda, do you want to carry on with your list?
Bye-bye, my love. Yes, so panic attacks, yes, and panic attacks can be so difficult, you know, when you are in public and you're at work or something and you experience this panic attack, and it can be the most kind of confusing thing to go through. And I work with so many of my clients who go through this. And first of all, the best thing is to heal that on a subconscious level. So work with a therapist who can help you heal your childhood wounds, because this is the source of the anxiety attacks, right? This is what created them in the first place. So that will help you heal that in the long run. But so what do you do when this happens, right? So what do you do when you're outside or even at home and, you know, something like this happens? You have a panic attack and you can't breathe, and, you know, people experience different things physically, emotionally, and mentally. So what do you do? And what you can do is really give yourself some time out, and you can actually go outside, or you can just find a space for yourself. It would be best in nature, but if you don't have access to nature, that's completely fine. You can just find a place for yourself, and you can really sit down and close your eyes and take some deep breaths in and out, so you can release whatever it is that is kind of creating this anxiety for you, right? And you can just ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? You know, what is this? And is there anything that's triggering this, right? So you can just ask yourself these questions, and then be patient with yourself, because the panic attack will kind of leave, but you need to be patient with yourself, and you need to be there for yourself, and make sure that you soothe yourself at this time, and speak to yourself positively, and also ground yourself. Grounding yourself, you can just close your eyes and you're just sitting down somewhere, and imagine that you start growing roots just like a tree, right? And then you're absorbing all the nutrients from the soil, and you are a tree, and you start growing flowers and fruits on your branches. And this will make you feel like you're really strong and grounded. So just doing these things mentally will really, really help you kind of deal with panic attacks like straight away. So yes, my love, I hope this answers the question.
It does. Thank you so much. And yeah, I guess just to wrap it up, I guess one final question. And yeah, any concluding thoughts from you guys in trying to cultivate self-compassion? How do you detach from negative thoughts or intrusive thoughts? Because I think a lot of the time people don't even recognize when they're being self-critical. And there's a lot being pushed on us at the moment with, you know, the gratitude mindset, the growth mindset, etc., etc. And I think it'd be just interesting to hear like how to deal with those thoughts, because, you know, as Muslims, we know that even some of our thoughts is like waswasa from like the shaitan and stuff. So it isn't necessarily all of our thoughts don't always reflect who we are as like human beings, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to get your final concluding thoughts, and yeah, hopefully everyone can follow the speakers and join us for future sessions as well.
Is this question for me, my love?
Yes, for both of you. So Go for it.
Okay. Zara, I think I'll quickly try to answer this question and then I'll leave it to you. Thank you so much, my love. So, yes, so our thought patterns, the way we speak to ourselves and the way our parents spoke to us as children becomes our inner voice. So the way we were spoken to as children, this is how we will speak to ourselves when we grow up. So if you were a child and then you broke something and then your parents punished you physically or emotionally, or just told you off, or they stopped talking to you, or they kicked you out of the house or something, I don't know, then when you grow up and you make a mistake, you're going to do the same thing to yourself. You're going to abuse yourself, right? You're going to tell yourself off. You're going to punish yourself. So you will do the same thing that was done to you as a child. So what we need to do to heal this permanently, we really need to tap into the subconscious mind, like, the back of our minds. Where is this coming from? When did I feel like this for the very first time? Oh, when I was 5 years old and this happened to me. And the thing is, we don't remember everything, right? We just don't remember everything that happened to us when we were kids. So that's why it's important to work with someone that can help you tap into all your memories from childhood. And that's going to have like an amazing effect, and it's going to completely change the way you speak to yourself and the way you see the world, the way you see yourself. And the way you see yourself is your self-worth, isn't it? It's what you believe about yourself. And once you believe that you're worthy and you're good enough and you deserve to be loved and you deserve all the good things in the world, then you lean back and you receive those things. You allow yourself to receive, right? And this is confidence, and this is self-love and self-compassion, right? So these things can, it's a practice, and it's okay if you're struggling. Any of you, if you're struggling, that's completely okay. All these things that you're going through, all the people, I think I missed a question about toxic people. There's all the toxic people in your life. They're there for a reason. And one day, and I know this may not be easy to kind of understand if you're going through something right now, but one day you realize it was a blessing. It was a blessing in disguise, because they taught you how to love yourself. They taught you so much about yourself, about other people. They taught you how to be kind, loving, and compassionate, and closer to God, right? And this is the biggest blessing you can ever ask for. So yes, we can really allow ourselves to forgive people who hurt us, because on a bigger kind of, when you look at it from a distance, it's really lessons that we need to learn. And those lessons can look beautiful once we kind of heal through them. But while you're going through it, I know it's difficult. Just be patient with yourself, be patient with your journey, and you're doing so well. You guys, if you're here today, you're doing amazing, and just keep going. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Satoda.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I totally agree, Satoda. All of your answers, mashallah, so enlightening. I'll add to what you've shared from a slightly different angle, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, right? We are a spirit brought into this human body. This human body is this physical form, and also our mind, our brain. So our brain is of the dunya. It is, when our spirit goes back up, our body, our brain will be in our grave decay. So our brain is a tool. It is a resource that we have to navigate this world and this life. And all the thoughts that come into it are not, we don't need to attach ourselves to them. It's a tool. A great analogy that I heard was that of a horse. Think of a wild horse. If you try to ride a wild horse, It's gonna, you know, be running here and there. It's gonna try and go and graze in that field, go to this place. You're gonna have a very hard time getting to your destination, right? You're trying to get from A to B. It's just not cooperating getting you to B because it is untrained. It's not used to having a rider on its back. It doesn't know about listening to you pulling its reins. It's just doing whatever it wants. But a trained horse, a horse that, you know, knows the rules and the commands, when you get onto that horse's back, it is very efficient at getting you from A to B. You can ride it, you can control it, you can get there. And our minds similarly are a tool that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. So it is on us to train our minds. We cannot let them run helter skelter with all negative thoughts. Oh my God, what if this happens? What if I get coronavirus and then this person and then the pandemic and blah, 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 and my business and blah, blah. And it can go crazy. And you've encountered friends who are like, they'll share with you their worries and you're like, whoa, you've gone way, what's happening? Why are you thinking all, you know, and you feel it in your own selves. But that is the result of an undisciplined mind, the result of a mind that has let to be roaming free. And all of Islam, in what Allah has shared with us, is to guide us and support us in disciplining our minds. Remember me, contemplate creation, think of Allah, focus on prayer, sit between, you know, between the prayers, essentially is meditation. Meditate is to discipline your mind, to remember the truth, that you're a spirit, that you are supported, that all risk comes from Allah, that you are taken care of, that if a whole world were to gather to harm you, they couldn't harm you. It's to get your mind to be within the realm of an obedient horse so that it can be under the dominion of your heart. If you look in the Quran, all source of knowledge and understanding, Allah links it to the heart. The Quran does not mention the brain or the mind at all. It says, will they not understand? Their breasts are open for understanding. Their chests are open. Their heart is open. All understanding comes from the heart. So our heart is meant to lead us in our life. You know, we've just veered so far off track, you know, the Western world, you know, be rational, think smart, use your brain, blah, blah, blah. We've been inundated with like, we're supposed to rely on our minds, but we can see now that just causes stress and anxiety. Trying to make the pro and con list for every decision, your mind can come up with the pros and cons, and then you're stuck and you're paralyzed and you're anxious because you don't know what to choose. Whereas your heart can tap into spiritual realms and sense the guidance that Allah's, well, this just feels right. You have no rational explanation for it, but it just feels like I'm supposed to, you know, go to this program or work with this thing or talk with this person. It feels right because that is knowledge that is coming from the unseen realm, that is a blessing and a connection between you and Allah. And when you're more leading with your heart, your mind is the horse, a trained horse that gets you from A to B. That, you know, oh, we're trying to plan a vacation. Your mind does what it needs to do to plan that vacation. I'm trying to, whatever it is, your mind leads you to do it, but it is not just free roaming. Oh, we need to work on this. We need to do that. We need to worry about this. And that is the place when you're talking about negative thoughts and how to be disciplined, it is working on your mind. And as a mindset coach, one of the things I offer is, if you go to my Instagram account, it's @practicalmuslim, is Islamic devotionals, which are short little reminders to help you conceptualize Allah in a supportive way and get your mind thinking correctly or back in line with the truth that Allah has told us, so that it can get into its place as subservient to your heart. And now, if you'll allow me, I want to speak on something different than this, because it relates to a little bit of all that we've talked about. And so I'm gonna share a story of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And why this relates is because for a lot of us growing up as Muslims, we have absorbed the people-pleasing message of, we are essentially responsible for other people's emotions and well-being and happiness, and that what we do and how we behave, we've got to watch out about it because we don't want to make other people jealous. And, you know, you have to be kind to your sister and, you know, make her happy, and all of these things. And I want to share this story of the Prophet ﷺ that we all know, but might not have really appreciated it from this angle. So the Prophet ﷺ, his first wife was Khadija radiallahu anha, and the legend, the history that we know is that he loved her so much. She was, you know, his most beloved. He only married her. He was married to her for so long. All of his children are from her. She supported him as the first person to believe in Islam. Her wealth was to support the ummah. Her everything that he essentially, when he, you know, received revelation, had Khadija, when he came down home from the mountain, shaking, crying, say, I saw an angel, I think I've gone insane. If she had been like, oh my God, maybe you have gone insane, it would have been over. He would have not had the capacity to believe. So he knew that like her belief in him is what gave him the strength to believe that he wasn't crazy and then to persevere on this incredibly difficult task that Allah had given him. So he loved her so much. Okay. She passes away. He marries other women. One of his wives is Aisha, radiallahu anha. So we know Aisha was the youngest wife, and she loved the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he loved her also so much, but she was also very jealous. And he would mention Khadija here and there. He would also go and give gifts to her family and her friends. And these things would make Aisha jealous. So what I want to remind us all in this story is that the Prophet ﷺ did not stop. He did not stop talking about Khadija or sending gifts to her family, even though it made Aisha jealous. You know, and he had a lot of issues with Aisha and his other wives, that they would all get jealous and had different turmoils. And it could have been easier for him as a husband, as a man, to be like, okay, you know, I'm not going to talk about Khadija anymore. It's causing a lot of turmoil in my current marriage to talk about my dead wife. Like, I'm just not going to do it. But he didn't. He kept talking about Khadija, and he kept giving her gifts. Why? Because her feelings, Aisha's feelings, was not his responsibility. He is not responsible for making Aisha feel good. He is not responsible for making Aisha not be jealous. That's not his job. It's Aisha's job to regulate her own emotions and deal with her own jealousy and handle those issues. His truth was that Khadija was a great love and was the everything for him to become a prophet. And he could not deny that because it made someone else feel bad. So I saw a lot of questions in the chat about what do we do about our parents? Our parents, are we supposed to be obedient to them? And here we have a great example of the Prophet ﷺ adhering to his truth, even if it upsets others. And no one will accuse the Prophet of being selfish or inconsiderate or being, you know, a bad husband. None of those things. We know that he is the example of all of mankind. So here we have a man engaging in an action that he knows distresses his wife, makes her upset, makes her jealous. We have stories of her like flipping food, throwing food in the table because she's so jealous. He knows it brings upon this behavior in her, and he doesn't stop. This is his truth. Khadija is my great love. I will give her gifts. I will praise her all the time. If that is upsetting to you, that is between you and yourself and Allah. And I don't have to take responsibility for it and alter my behavior and hide and diminish myself, self-abandon who I am and what I think because of that for you. So I wanted to end with this because for many of us in Islam, we've grown up as a religion that we're supposed to be this way. We're supposed to be nice and kind and cater to everyone else. And that's not the example of the Prophet ﷺ. Yes, he was compassionate and kind and considerate, but he did not self-abandon. He did not do that to the detriment of the truth. So if your truth is something that you need to share with your parents and they are going to be upset about it, it might be uncomfortable. You know, Nahla talked about that. It might be hard. It might be really crappy, but it does not mean that what you are doing is wrong. It does not mean that what you are doing is bad, that you've upset them or they're angry or, you know, you made a friend jealous or whatever. If you are sticking to your truth, that is allowed, permissible, encouraged. We have the example. So hopefully that's helpful to you guys because it relates to so many layers of especially the people pleasing and the self-worth and self-love, putting ourselves last. We have distorted Islam to mean that we just kind of have to mesh and adhere to what everyone thinks we should be. And that was not the message of Islam, and that was not the example of our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for spending the time with us. Spending your, where we had speakers from 3 different time zones. So I know for Studa it's like the evening and it's around daytime for you, Zara. So thank you so much for everything. And we will be sharing short clips online for anyone who's missed this. And yeah, feel free to follow the speakers. If you guys can leave their apps in the description box, and yeah, also follow the Sudanese Diaspora Network at SDN.world. Zara's at Practical Muslim and at Satoda_Safi. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. I've really enjoyed this, and I know so many people found this really empowering and enlightening. So, and thanks again. So yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you everyone that was here, and sending you guys so much love. And I hope you enjoyed this talk. And yes, guys, I do have a course coming up in 6th of June, which is healing childhood trauma and family generational trauma. And we have, we have the scholarships that people can apply for as well. So you can check this out. I'm not sure, I think they can just message you, right?
So everyone who's registered to attend has been put in the running, as well as people shared. So we'll be randomly selecting winners for that as well.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, guys, thank you so much for being here.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing restorative Ramadan. Masalama.
And also I do coaching, so you can reach out to me at Practical Muslim, and I do one-on-one coaching, and I also have a course.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay.
Masalam, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Lovely to meet you. Thank you, Azza, for having me.
Lovely to host you guys. Masalama. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Masalama.